The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
Rockets training camp day 2 and how injuries are already hurting Houston's season. Let's go ahead and hear really quickly a little bit of what Ime Udoka had to say from day 2 of Rockets training camp, and then we'll talk about it.
Dorian's not on the court. Do you expect him to be ready for the start of the season?
No, probably not.
Is he not clear for any basketball activities right now, or what's
No contact, but doing all the shooting and other things, but getting treatment as well during practice.
Do you have any sense for how many games he might miss?
I do not.
What have you liked about the way everybody's gelled together these first couple days?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, we have a lot of corporate knowledge in the building after 2 years now, so the young guys get it, and then the people that we've added are, veterans as well. So it's not like my first year here where we had to kind of teach and build everything from the ground up. We'll reiterate the points, but they catch on quickly. So it's a good mix of veterans and young guys.
In these early days of camp, what are the main things you're trying to accomplish?
Well, gelling our team together with the new pieces, building on our identity, and so that's kind of been the message, is what worked well for us so far in these 2 years, and maintaining that, but then adding to it, and how the urgency and expectations and things of that nature, how fast we can get this group to come together. Obviously our guys are working hard in the offseason, so we're not really worried about conditioning or anything, but just the normal grind of getting back into it.
So that was a little bit of Ime Udoka from day 2 of Rockets training camp, and it really sucks that this Rockets team is already dealing with so many injuries so early on in the season. Obviously, no Fred VanVleet for the foreseeable future, and then now also learning, that Dorian Finney-Smith, having that offseason ankle surgery, isn't going to be ready to go for the start of the season. And there isn't even really a timetable yet on DFS. Like, that's the severity of it, is just, if it was like, oh yeah, he probably won't be ready until early November or whatever, then it's like, okay, he'll miss like the first, handful of games, but no timetable is a little alarming. And here's the thing, is the Rockets knew about the Dorian Finney-Smith surgery, and they knew probably that he wouldn't be available to start the season because of this rehabilitation process when they signed him, because he had the surgery all the way back in June. But the problem here is that they also didn't expect Fred VanVleet to suddenly get, have an ACL injury, right? So the Rockets now are looking pretty depleted, unfortunately. A team that was supposed to be able to really rely on their depth is suddenly missing some really key contributors, in particular, guys that they were really going to rely on for floor spacing and shooting between Fred VanVleet and Dorian Finney-Smith, to where you start to really get concerned about what this team is ultimately going to look like, what starting lineup and what lineups in totality are they going to be able to field to kind of start this season until they're able to get their hands on Dorian Finney-Smith. And once he's, healthy and back in the rotation, and obviously you're basically operating under the assumption that Fred's not going to play at all this season. And you start to think about what that's going to do to things like the floor spacing, and how that's going to negatively impact, the ability for guys like Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun to have space to operate, for them to be able to create opportunities for their teammates. And even beyond that, what does that ultimately look like, right? Because now your bench depth is suddenly really suspect. Like, if we operate under the assumption that Reed just slides into the starting lineup, which I don't think is a given at this point, you've got Reed, Amen, Jabari, KD, and Sengun as your starting 5. And then off your bench, you'll have Adams and Tari as your, the guys that were part of your key rotation guys last season. But you're going to be relying on, pretty early out the gate, you're going to be relying on a lot of the stay ready crew guys to be able to step up and help fill some of that void in the rotation, right? You're going to see minutes for guys like you're going to see minutes for Aaron Holiday throughout the season regardless, because of the Fred injury. But So Aaron's going to have a bigger role. You're probably going to see Jayshawn Tate minutes, on the wing as he's going to, be a bit of a stopgap until DFS is healthy. One other area that the Rockets might ultimately go is, they do still have the double big lineup that was so impactful, so effective for so much of, the end of last season and throughout the playoffs. And they did very intentionally go sign Clint Capella to be able to, run different versions of that double big lineup and to be able to run a version of that double big lineup, even when Steven Adams is sitting out games or missing time. And you could very easily see a world where the Rockets just lean all the way into the double big lineup from the jump, right? Starting Steven Adams, moving Şengün to the 4, moving KD down to, or moving Jabari down to the 3 and just running KD at the 2 and Amin at the 1, that Monstars lineup that we talked about, because then you could use on a nightly basis, at least to start until DFS is healthy. You can factor in Clint Capella. You can run the big lineups. You can, prioritize that zone defense and having all the length on the floor and just outsizing your opponents on a nightly basis. That might be the easiest way for the Rockets to get to some of their win conditions and to be able to space out the rotation accordingly without having to rely too much on some of the other stay ready crew members. So it'll be really interesting to see how Ime Udoka kind of balances all of this, unfortunately. And it is unfortunate that the Rockets are now, losing 2 of the key contributors that they really thought they'd have to start the season. Granted, they have a relatively easy-ish start to the schedule, and they've got this abundance of talent on the roster that I think they'll be able to find ways to get through it. It just might not look pretty is the problem at the end of the day. Is like, between KD and Şengün and Amin, and the supporting cast around them, they have a ton of talent and the ability to probably overcome some of these, weaknesses or some of these, injuries, I should say. But that's also the other thing is, you don't want to wear down Kevin Durant this early in the season, this quickly, right? We've talked about it before, but, the idea that if the Rockets could get KD at, 32, 33, 34, 35 minutes a night, instead of really leaning on him for, 35, 36, 37, 38 minutes per game, you might be able to stretch it and get like 70 games out of KD instead of only like 60 games out of KD. And that's where things start to get really concerning is, if KD has to sit out or miss any time early whatsoever, suddenly you're missing 2 rotation guys. And then you factor in missing KD. Injuries might become a very real problem for this Rockets team this season, especially with, Rockets beat reporter Daniel Lerner of the Houston Chronicle hinting that Steven Adams and Tari Eason might still not be playing on the second nights of back-to-backs, even as a preventative measure, still a little bit concerning and certainly something that might be having an effect.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
I'm going to start here with Daniel Gafford. So, according to Jason Kidd, he rolled his ankle on the first day of camp and will miss 2 to 3 weeks after that ankle injury. And, I just, I think it's time. First of all, it's time to bring this out.
I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
And then I just gotta say, I don't say this word lightly, slightly.
Okay.
Y'all, we back.
It's great. Yep. It's great, dude. Dude, it's great. It's great. It's great, broski. Bro, name it. It's great. It's great. It's great, bro. It's great. It's great. It's great. This life's great, bro. I have no complaints. I don't.
What was the context of that again? I always forget.
It was on a Twitch stream at some point, and
not here. But he was on Brooklyn, right?
I think he was on Brooklyn, but maybe he had just joined Dallas, or it was like, I don't know. But anyway, that was Kyrie, the great one. But The longer you play that drop, the more you like don't believe him. The more you're like, it doesn't sound like it's great, which is what I mean by Daniel Gafford rolling his ankle. It's like, all right, we're back. The injuries are back, just like last season. These things happen. It's a freak accident, freak injury. It's not like something that is like degenerative. Like I'm totally concerned about it. Like, should I care about it and worry that Daniel Gafford's going to all of a sudden be injury prone? No, I'm not worried about it. But 2 to 3 weeks, if it's 3 weeks from Wednesday, October 1st, literally takes him to the opening day, October 22nd, the first day of the first game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Should we care about it in that sense? That'll miss basically the entire preseason.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is something we should care about. I mean, I agree with you in the sense that, and also always with these preseason injuries, it's like, all right, if this were, January or March and there's like a playoff push, is he playing? Is he coming back quicker? It's always one of those things. But yeah, it's concerning. You never want guys to miss entire training camps, which is what this sounds like almost. There's always, stats and numbers that these guys always start the season slower and it takes them a while to get back into it and get his conditioning, and while all these other guys are getting their conditioning right. So yeah, it does matter. Hopefully he'll be back. If it's a 2-week timeline, that'll give him a week to ramp up before the start of the season. But yeah, I also think, I think Cade mentioned that there wasn't a starting lineup and there's only a couple of guys that had like solidified starting spots. And I think we all just kind of assume the center position is one of those positions that is available for the opening night starting lineup. And, if Lively's going to have a whole training camp as the only center, then that probably means that Lively will start the season at the 5 and Gafford will come off the bench when he comes back. So yeah, this one matters quite a bit, I would say. And it's very unfortunate.
It does matter. And Daniel Gafford in our interview with him that we did at Media Day was like, I'm ready to be uncomfortable. I'm ready to try things that I haven't before. I know I'm going to have to defend out of the perimeter. He was like ready to step up to this moment. And maybe this is another one. Like, all right, now you're going to be coming off the bench. Now you're going to be, because they're going to bring him back slowly. It does seem like a thing Jason Kidd does too, that we've seen in the past, where like if somebody's injured, somebody who starts for him, especially if they're doing well in that spot, then the injured player comes off the bench for a little while, especially if they're even as far as talent. Obviously like a Kyrie or Nathan Davis wouldn't do that, but that's something that feels like Jason Kidd would do. So yeah, I think this one is one that we care about. Him missing time though, in training camp, it stinks that he's going to miss time with Cooper Flagg, with D'Angelo Russell, with the guards that he's going to have to work with. He hasn't done a ton of work with like Anthony Davis from last year. Even like AD only played 9 games last year. We have the Houston half that got brought up a few times. I should have put that on the bingo card. The Houston half would be mentioned. I should have put it. I had it on my notes that I should have brought that up. But is there any other concern you have with Gafford missing time? Because a rolled ankle, I'm not really like freaking out about.
Well, there's obviously the tiny bit of PTSD, because wasn't this what Derek Lively's injury was supposed to be last year? No, I think that's a little extreme, obviously.
Do we pray to the medical gods? Like,
I think we do. And I really wanted to believe that they're going to make sure, like, all right, guys, we cannot do this again. Like, did you do every type of scan you could do on his feet? Do we know for sure what it is? But
do you think they got metabeds?
Yeah, what is that?
Obviously, metabeds. It's like this. It's this AI video that's going around. That's like this bed chamber thing, basically like a tank or whatever that you sit in, and it fixes all your ailments. And people are like believing it, including maybe the president.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Let's get one of those.
I know. Hey, if it was true, it would be great if we could have one of those. The Mavs needed one of those last season.
Miriam, dial up your friend and let's get one installed.
You know what? If it does happen that way, we're going to be thankful that she invested all that.
That's true. Yeah, I'll sell my soul. I don't care. Let's do it.
Another one. Brandon Williams had a hamstring strain and will be out for a week, according to head coach Jason Kidd. Should we care about Brandon Williams being out for a week?
I mean, I would say yes again. I mean, I feel like, especially some of the DSJ comments, like maybe his roster spot's not as certain as we kind of went into the summer imagining. But also, too, these soft tissue ones, an ankle sprain's an ankle sprain. We have so much time with those. You'll recover from them. It's basketball. I mean, ankle sprain's got to be like the most common injury. Yeah. So, we know them. We understand them. All right, you didn't tear anything. You got a week or two and you'll be fine. The soft tissue hamstring ones, those are always calf. These ones like kind of linger. And I don't love when guys go into the season with these because they oftentimes can come back and re-aggravate them, or they're overcompensating and now they're injuring something else. And, considering his spot, he's on, isn't his contract non-guaranteed?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
he could be waived.
It's a big bummer for him. What they say, a week? They said a week.
A week.
That'll have him back for preseason games. So
yeah, right.
Not the end of the world, assuming he's back by then. But I would say if it were someone else, I'd say, But someone like him, yeah, it could be a big deal. Honestly,
it could, because it might be close. The way Kyrie was talking about the point guard battle, like even to the starting spot he was talking about. I like that the Mavericks are bringing in all these guys for battles, but then it does make it real tight. Where if you miss some time, and another guy's taking all the headlines and taking all the the attention and playing really well, then all of a sudden that hurts you in the long run, especially if they are using this. Do you think that coaches go in and they're like, all right, we're deciding between Dennis Smith Jr. and Brandon Williams, and they're like, we know it's going to be Dennis Smith Jr. And they're just trying to get like confirmation bias throughout training camp? Or do you really think they go in like, all right, it's 50-50. However they do a training camp and preseason, we're literally taking it from that? Because it's hard for me to imagine that they literally just take what we see in preseason training and like what we hear about training camp.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know, because I do feel like it has to be, and I would like to think there's probably like hey, this guy's been here for a couple years and was playing with us last year and has played with AD and Clay and all these guys. True. So like Brandon Williams has a leg up. So,
But we also have this like guy that got all defensive team votes a couple years ago that can come in and is kind of a fan favorite also. And
I mean, this opens up the door. I would not have considered it a possibility even 2 days ago, honestly.
Dennis over Brandon Williams?
Yeah, I really wouldn't have. I would have thought, because Dennis Smith Jr. can technically go to the Legends, can he? I don't know if he would want to do that.
True.
These type of things sometimes though are also like, hey, we like you, we like you. We don't have the spots, but come to our training camp, show out a little bit. We'll spread the word about you. Like if it ends up that you don't sign here, we'll put a good word out. We'll say you had a great camp, all this stuff, and hopefully you can get on somewhere else. We just don't have the roster spots for you. Like I think that happens too, is sort of like favors.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast.
Matt, your travel day was yesterday. You got in and we decided, hey, let's make sure to get a couple days here, get some good information, and you have some fun things to share.
Yeah. So got in yesterday, caught like the last 3 minutes of Adelman. I literally got off the plane, literally went straight to the arena, caught the last 3 minutes of Adelman, talked to folks there before we headed out after they were done with practice, caught the full practice today, caught up with a number of people, talked to Ryan Bowen, new coach of the Nuggets G League Gold. You can check out that exclusive interview over at the Denver Dig. I am springing for this trip independently. So if you want to support the show and you want to support having coverage on the ground, go to the Denver Dig and become a subscriber for me, because that helps me out with that. Excited to be on the ground here. Excited to cover training camp. I've never been out here to San Diego, so it's been cool to see. I've never been to San Diego in general. I think the biggest thing to kind of talk about from a Nuggets camp perspective, the energy is what you want it to be. So this is kind of a pass-fail situation, because I think all training camps are largely pretty positive. Everybody's largely healthy. Everybody is largely in good shape. Everybody is largely excited. And there's all this opportunity and all right, fresh start, right? So you want that. But if it's not that way, that's a huge red flag. And that's not how this is. Like, it's been very good here. The vibe is very good. The veterans, I think the new voices I think having new guys has actually been really great, because there's a whole process here of new energy with guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas, and having Bruce back, that I think has really kind of sparked some stuff. And you can tell that Cam Johnson is getting kind of learning where he's going to fit in. And I think taking his time with adjusting. Adelman said today that the starters were very good. They were locked in. The energy was great, and they were locked in on both ends of the floor. He actually singled out Jamal Murray specifically for being tremendous on both ends of the court today in practice. And that follows a theme, which is like Jamal has been more engaged. Jamal was the one organizing workouts over the summer. Jamal was great with the media today. I spoke with Julian while he went, but he was like great and in a good mood. And it just seems like there is a different lift to Jamal Murray from the perspective of, I don't think that this is a season that Jamal feels is about him, or even just like carrying through and doing the same thing. It feels very much like this is like he's taking a different and a larger role on the team. And I think that's really good, because it's a really great way to kind of engage, I think, Jamal and get the best out of him. So a lot of positive energy coming out about Jamal. Tim Hardaway Jr., I asked him today, actually. I wanted to know, because one of the things that today was like, yesterday is just basically like they get in, they do some conditioning, they run up and down.
Sure.
Like it's settling into camp. And today is when they start really kind of installing stuff, and they start working on this stuff. They're adding new terminology. Now, what that means is like the play calls. If you're going to ice, what do you call icing? What do you call drop? What do you call, like, the different coverages that they use, as well as the play calls, are going to change for the first time in quite a while, because Malone was just running the same thing back. And they are installing new terminology. Now, it's all stuff that the other teams know. Okay. Everybody knows everything. And once you figure out like, oh, this means X, this means Y, those will get input in scouting reports, and teams know this more and more.
Sure.
But there is some value in it. And one of the things that I hadn't really thought about is part of the value of changing it is not only to freshen it up, but it also provides an opportunity for everyone to learn at the same time. And I asked Tim Hardaway Jr. about that today, and here's what he said.
The benefit is not everybody obviously knows the terminology. Only you guys, only the team, the group knows. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's a copycat league. It's just a matter of time until someone else does it. So just got to keep pushing. Know all the calls. These guys have their terminology, different coaches. So it shouldn't be tough. It shouldn't be hard.
So that's Tim Hardaway Jr. kind of talking about the calls and stuff. And a lot of this is that Jared Dudley and JJ Barea are taking larger parts of the system here. And we didn't talk about this enough on the Media Day show, that I think it's important to talk about, because we need to kind of set this tone. JJ Barea is going to run offense. Jared Dudley's running defense.
Yeah.
And that distinction I think is really important. Just kind of get known, like, hey, JJ is the de facto, even though they always like, coaches are weird about this, where it's like, well, he contributes on all. Oh, yes, okay, fine, but like, what's the primary responsibility? And JJ
Adelman was basically saying, right, that like, hey, JJ Barea is going to help me out on the offensive, like he's going to be the main guy, but he mentioned specifically Jared Dudley's going to coordinate like he's going to be the one that is responsible for that.
Yeah. And Dudley's been the one installing a lot of the new terminology on the defensive side. So that was interesting to hear. TSJ also today mentioned that he's got, like, he was really impressed with the third unit. He said the third unit has been really keeping the second unit sharp by being on top of things. And yesterday you heard Adelman kind of saying the same thing, that the third unit has played with high energy and effort, but they've also played smart basketball, which is what the Nuggets need to practice at a high level. So even guys like Moses Brown, even guys that are on the exhibit 10s are giving really good effort consistently. I'm not going to go so far as to say like Spencer Jones is like popping, but I will say that I've heard good things consistently about Spencer Jones, to the point where they're trying to we'll talk about the second unit and the second segment appropriately. But they wanted to keep that unit playing together today when one of the starters needed a rest, and they actually put Spencer into the first unit to keep that second unit together, which I just think is like a little bit interesting. So that's encouraging, I think, to see that there is like a high level of competition all the way through, and that you don't have like frustration with the third unit just not being like that. They're getting good practice minutes. Yeah. I've heard that hashtag sauces. But Jokic has been really encouraged by the way practices have gone because they've been able to have actual competitive, sharp practices.
And that wasn't always the case. I think that especially last year, it felt, and I think one of the reasons why you add depth is not just because it helps the bench unit, but because it helps like all spots, like all the way through 15 and then through 18 if you've got 18 guys on the roster. And we'll get into that specifically, but it does mean that just the overall level, the overall consistency is higher. And last year specifically, just there were so many injuries, there were so many like poor fits, there were so many disappointments that it never felt like they were getting consistently pushed. And it really was just like 8 or 9 guys that were out there on a consistent basis trying to drag everything together. Matt, you have been very good about sharing some good information here, some detailed information. Spencer Jones, I like the idea of getting some contributions, maybe from places that you wouldn't have expected at the beginning of the season. Tell me a little bit about the bench unit. Everybody understands and appreciates that the starters, you've got Jokic, Murray, it's no longer Porter, it is Cam Johnson, it's Aaron Gordon, it's Christian Brown. Those guys are pretty locked in. They're pretty set in stone. But what have the Nuggets used so far with their bench?
So the second unit has been Bruce Brown, Julian Strother, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, and Peyton Watson at the 4, which I think is interesting. That kind of speaks to so I see you shrugging. I see you making the audio.
Who could have foreseen this?
But I mean, I'll ask you, like, do you think that Peyton Watson's going to be able to rebound enough?
I don't think he's going to have to as much if Jonas is out there. It's a little bit different if Jonas is there just gobbling up rebounds and everybody is on a consistent, like, same page doing what you're supposed to do. A lot of the time, if Peyton is helping at the rim, Jonas is then crashing the glass and he's going to be a beast down there.
Yeah, I get it. I worry that they're not going to have enough team rebounding. I just worry about that a little bit. But I talked to Julian today and kind of asked him, like, hey, are you, kind of handling the ball a little bit more? Because Bruce definitely can handle and thinks of himself as a point guard, but is that a little bit more of what you're doing? And Julian was pretty honest. He was like, no, like, Bruce is going to be the main backup point guard. So, like, that to me is relevant. Now, I don't personally love that because I think I like the idea of Julian being more of a creator because Julian has a 3-pointer and a floater game where it's like, if he can just improve at the rim a little bit, you've got a 3-level score that you can put into actions. And I don't mind Julian as like a little bit of a creator to let him stretch his legs a little bit there. But it does sound like Bruce is going to be the primary backup point guard. And you're going to see a lot of that. And if they do the stagger, I think tomorrow, Adelman kind of talked about how like today is not really when they didn't get into the stagger much. They want to get the second unit time together. So I think that you're going to start seeing different lineups tomorrow. And we'll talk about that on tomorrow night's show as far as like what that may have looked like, because I think Adelman had kind of wanted to get 2 days of those guys getting a lot of minutes together, starters and second unit, and then start working with the different combinations. That's kind of how they're building it out.
I like it. I think that makes a lot of sense. You want to develop the foundation for those lineups, know that this is the default setting, and then you work your way outwards from there and thinking, okay, this is where you start learning who plays well together and then blending the starters and the bench guys together as the season progresses. I like that. I'm not surprised again that it's Bruce, it's Julian, it's Tim, it is Peyton Watson, and is Jonas Valanciunas. Just like looking at it from a pecking order standpoint, that always made the most sense to me. It may not be the best positionally, but it's certainly Denver's most talented 5 off of the bench, and a lot of those guys have expectations, and I think that there's certainly reasons to expect those guys to play a fair amount.
Yeah, I think somebody in there it was Tiffany wants to know, how does Duran look? I'll tell you, like, Duran, Adelman singled out that today Duran Holmes looked much better than yesterday. That he looked yesterday was kind of his first, like, keep in mind that was his first full practice day against NBA bigs, right?
Whew.
Like that was his first time. And he's guarding Nikola Jokic and Jonas Valanciunas. But today he was much more engaged and kind of fought back and gave the physicality back. The other thing I'll tell you is like, look, shooting drills or whatever, but I will tell you, like, I was really impressed with Deron Holmes' outside stroke today in a shooting drill with Spencer Jones and Zeke Naji. He was consistent, form was consistent, percentage was consistent. So like Deron's ability, I think, to space the floor is really helpful because if you can play him at 4, I just think that helps a ton. Like I like the idea of Deron Holmes at 4 next to Jonas Valanciunas because I'm like, man, you got the ability to space the floor, a big man that can pass and set screens, and Holmes' physicality on top of a little bit of spacing. That to me is like really promising. So
does that remind you a little bit of Jaren Jackson and Jonas Valanciunas?
No, but I just think it's a pretty good combo of like physicality. I think is what I really want there. That's my thing with Peyton is put him at the 3, and then like Peyton, Deron, Jonas. I'm like, okay, you have defense, you have athleticism, and you have just physicality everywhere. And I really like the kind of look of that. And then then it gets into an interesting question of which starter are you going to keep with those guys then. But I do think that Deron has had a much better day today. I do think that Duran's definitely going to be outside the rotation starting the season. I don't think anybody should be surprised at that, and he'll take injuries. But when he gets his opportunities, I do think that he's going to have. I think he's looking. I'll say to me, he looks a little bit better than Summer League. So I think there's a good chance for him to be able to make an impact this season at some point.